right, so we've got another project here for you. This is a piece of cherry. I believe it is choke cherry, but I'm not 100% sure of that. I found it several years ago in a field near where I live. It had already been cut down. Cherry, of course, is a very hard wood, so I'll be using a lot of gouges and mallet during this project, but I will also be using a knife and palm gouge. If I keep my tools sharp and have some patience and use good technique, I'm able to work on it, but it does take more time than softer woods like basswood or pine. So this is a project for my sister-in-law and brother-in-law out in Maine. They are going to be using it for a project on their schoolie that they're building. So this is one of 3 pieces that I am carving for them. I chose this piece of wood because it has this little side branch on it, and I'm going to carve this wood spirit as though it is smoking a cigar, or maybe perhaps has just this stick coming out of its mouth. Either way, it will lend itself very well for it, and it is going to make it look a little bit more interesting. So after getting some of the bark off, I was able to redraw my lines that I'm going to reference, and I always find that it works much better for me to redraw the lines. I used to try and just carve and not use any reference lines, but I don't have as much success when I do that, so I do like to have those reference lines. I'm also doing a sped up version of this, of course. I'm not actually carving as fast as you see on the screen there. I'm not a big fan of these kind of videos, but for this I thought it was okay, because this is I'm going to talk about a couple of things. One of the things that I really want to talk about is in wood carving and in sculpture, there is kind of a principle or an element of design that a lot of people overlook, and that is the idea that you really need to work on the overall form of the piece before you start working on the details. And I'll try to talk about that a couple times throughout this video. So right now I'm really just working on getting the overall form of the piece. So I've worked on kind of highlighting where the nose is, and now I'm doing the eye sockets, but I'm definitely not trying to get any detail in here. In my early days of carving, I would often jump very quickly into those details, and then inevitably I would find out that I would need to carve some more over an area that I just carved. So it really does help in the process to make sure that you understand what is the overall form of the thing that you're carving. And so this is a wood spirit, and of course I don't have proportions that would be of a regular human face on here. I've exaggerated the nose and I've lengthened the face, so I have to be cognizant of that as I am carving. But I still want to know, where would a cheekbone be? Where is the nose? What's the height of the nose on here? Where are the eyebrows and things like that? And I want to really kind of get down to that overall form. One of the websites I just read that was talking about this, they suggested, imagine that the thing that you're carving is covered in like wrap, like a mummy, and that's really what you're shooting for when you first start carving. So you can see here that I am using a knife here, and a good sharp knife does work well. I am not wearing gloves, safety gloves for this. I have carved for a long time, and I do take the risk of cutting myself, but because I employ very good techniques, and part of that is from learned experience of cutting myself, I don't use a glove very often. If you are a beginner carver, you should definitely wear safety protection because the knife or the gouge will slip on you, and you can really hurt yourself. I know people have had to go in and get stitches and have severed things in their hand so that they lose some of the ability to use their hands. So don't necessarily do what I am doing. I'm willing to take the risk, but I think if you have limited experience, you should definitely have safety gloves on. So you can see here I've got the overall form of my piece developed, and now I'm going to start working on the details. And so now I'm working on that mouthpiece here, and again, this is a hard piece of wood, so I'm using the gouges and a mallet to get down into my details, or at least the starting part of the details. It's really hard to get the piece in frame when you're filming a wood carving video. So there's a lot of times that where I've drifted off camera, and I've tried to edit most of those out. And then there's times when it's out of focus. So I apologize for those things, but I left some of those in because you can see what I'm doing. So like here, drifts off, but hopefully comes back into frame here like that, so you can kind of see what I'm doing. So you can see as I'm carving, I will often stop and just take a overall look at the piece like there. I want to check and make sure that things are symmetrical. And here I'm using a gouge, and you can see I've got my thumb on my left hand there helping to guide that. That helps so that it doesn't shoot off and into my leg there. So that's a good technique. And you can see here on the knife where I've got two thumbs. I got the one hand on it and then my other thumb, and that helps to prevent it from shooting off and into some of my flesh, which would not be good. Normally on a face I would go pretty deep into the forehead, because on an actual face it actually slopes away quite a bit from the nose and from the eyebrows. But on this piece I'm just going back a little bit because, again, this isn't a human face, this is a wood spirit, so I knew that going into it after having carved many of these in the past. I'm using just a U-gouge here to do the wrinkles in the forehead. I know it's out of focus, but that's what I am doing there. This project probably took about an hour and a half to 2 hours of actual carving time. And here I'm using the gouge to start where the eyes, where the eyelids are open. And I used that gouge to get it started, and then I came back in with a knife to finish it up. That's one of the things I've learned is, with a hardwood, I'll put it on and use those gouges because then it's safer, but then I can come back in with a knife, and then I don't have to use as much pressure with that knife then to finish it up and clean it up. And here I'm putting in some wrinkle lines on the top of the eye, and then I'll come back and I'll put the wrinkles on the underneath and on the side of the eye. Again, I got that that other thumb on top of it. So you can see it kind of is going towards my hand at points, but because I've got that thumb on top of it, I limit the chance of it shooting off into space. And I don't apply, I don't over apply pressure with my right hand as I'm moving it. I only move it just enough so I've got control over that. And now I'm getting very close to being done here. I just need to get some depth in here where the cigar or stick and the mouth and the lips meet. And then I guess I didn't do the eyebrows on camera, but here I'm putting in the eyes. I'm using a U-gouge, small U-gouge, to get the shape of that, and then come back with a knife, and then I can pick at it and get some depth in there. And then the last thing to do is put some finish on it. And here is the finished item. This actually turned out really nice. I think it's one of my favorite carvings that I've ever done, both because it's an original design. I've never done anything like this before, and I just think the details came out. Plus that cherry just looks so nice. So Ted and Julie, hope you enjoy it, and I hope everybody else enjoyed watching me carve it. Thanks for watching. I appreciate the support.